Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 790. A Reunion 3. Enough of that. I clapped my hands once and stopped whatever was going on. Immediately, all attention focused on me once more as I shifted my focus onto Inaz. I'll get straight to the point. I need you to help me reach out to the goddess. I need to speak to her. What? Inaz's expression changed subtly. The same was for Anne as they both looked at me in shock and confusion. You want to meet with the goddess? Why? There's something that I need to ask her. I didn't elaborate any further, but the two seemed to understand what I meant as they exchanged a brief glance. Eventually, Inaz's expression shifted, a complicated look spreading across his face. Had you asked me a while back, I could have probably have done something, but the situation right now is a little bit tough. The entire church has been shut down, and those from the seat of Salas are hard to reach. Is something happening? Yes. Inaz didn't hold back any information. He informed me of everything that he knew. Or perhaps he informed me of everything that he was allowed to share. But it was good enough. There's been a strange substance spreading throughout the region. It helps people gain strength, but at the same time it drives them mad. I don't know much about it, since only those from the seat of Salas seem to have a clear grasp of the situation. But from what I've heard, it's not just happening here. The same thing is occurring in other territories as well. We're starting to lose control, and because of that, it's become nearly impossible for me to meet with the current living saint or anyone from the seat of Salas. The more I listened to Inaz's words, the more I frowned. This situation was becoming less and less ideal. What is the substance that he's talking about? Why is it spreading? Other territories, too? Is this done by a god or something else? My curiosity got the better of me, and I was just about to ask for more details about the strange substance when Inaz reached out and placed a small glass bottle and a candle on the table. Here. He pushed the items my way. These are the items that I've just recently managed to get my hands on. Check them out and see. Curious, I picked up the bottle and examined its contents. But the instant my fingers brushed against the glass, a searing heat coursed through my veins. My blood seemed to boil, and a sharp wave of realization struck me almost immediately. This. I opened my mouth, examining the bottle closely. This is the blood of. The words faded from my mouth the moment I was about to speak them, my eyes widening as a result. I tried again, but the result was no different. The blood of what? Spit it out. Why aren't you finishing your sentence? I could clearly see the frustration etched across the faces of everyone in the room as their eyes settled on me. Their expressions said more than words ever could, and seeing them, all I could do was offer a bitter smile. Thankfully, Leon was there to cover for me. Something is blocking him from saying the words. Huh. That's a thing. Without saying a word, I simply nodded and set the bottle back on the table before reaching for the candle. The moment my fingers brushed against it, the same sensation coursed through me. My blood roared as though set ablaze. Grimacing faintly, I placed the candle down once more. This is a lot more troublesome than I expected. It also raised a lot of questions. Why was the blood being distributed? What was causing this? Were the outer beings finally making a move? Is this also the reason why Panthea isn't making a move? Just what in the world is going on? The more I thought about the situation, the stranger it felt to me. I take it that you have some sort of idea as to what this strange substance is, but you're not allowed to say it. Looking back at Inaz, I opened my mouth but ultimately closed it before nodding. I was indeed not allowed to talk about. Not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't. I see. Inaz leaned back against his seat. His gaze lingered on the items laid out on the table. His expression unreadable, as though he were trying to piece together something only he could see. Eventually, he looked back at me. Since you already seem to have some understanding of what's going on, it would be best if you could speak with the goddess directly. Unfortunately, I wasn't lying when I said I can't arrange a meeting with her. Still, Inaz paused for a moment, his tone evening out a little bit. It's not entirely impossible for me to help you meet someone from the seat of Salas. You can. My eyes lit up. I just needed to reach someone with enough clearance to contact the goddess directly. As long as she became aware of my presence, I was confident I could secure a meeting with her. I'm sure she knows something about Noel. Given how he had saved her life in the past, I don't think their relationship is bad. There's no way the two would have worked together if their relationship was horrible. Haha, maybe the two of them even have a special relationship. I almost laughed at the thought. I couldn't think of Noel ever getting with anyone. But then, thinking about Julian's mother, I felt my expression twitch. Surely, let me see if I can arrange something. There's an important meeting between the seats soon. I can try to see if I can get a spot there. Standing up, Inez took out a strange device and left the room shortly after. I stared at his parting back before turning towards Anne. She was staring at me and then everyone else in the room. You guys. We're all the same age. Her face deflated as she similarly stood up, mumbling things like, kids these days are scary. I can't believe they're all this strong when they're so young. What did their families feed them? She left the room shortly after. What followed after her departure was a brief moment of silence. One that was inevitably broken by Kira as she looked at me. How did you meet these people exactly? I'm also a little bit curious. Evelyn chimed in. Turning my head and seeing Leon and Aoife also looking at me, I gave them a brief explanation. It was during the time when I was in the mirror dimension, when I technically died. Oh right, the moment you went ahead and died, and appeared again. That makes sense. I noticed hints of sarcasm in Kira's tone. Aoife joined from the side. Right. It's not like that's strange or anything. We should already be used to Julian leaving, just like how he left for 3 whole years. I didn't actually leave. Did you meet anyone in the 3 years you were gone? I looked at Leon. His face scrunched up as he looked at me. He probably didn't. Looks like they were all still holding a grudge. I sighed. Fine. I'll accept it. While it wasn't my fault and it had to be done, I could still see why they were angry. The entire world had shifted considerably since my departure, and a lot of things had happened as a result of Julian's actions. With that being said, I wasn't actually gone for very long. I was only gone for like a duh. Alright, it can be done. And Az's voice cut through mine as he entered the room once more, holding onto a strange device. He looked around the room before settling his gaze on me. There's going to be a gathering soon between the seats of Celeste. While I can't promise you I can get you a meeting with them, I can get you to attend the gathering. Whatever happens from that point will be up to you. Is that okay? I looked at Inez and stood up from my seat. That'll do. All I needed was a meeting. That was all I needed. It appears that Julian has been dealt with. A soft voice whispered within a soft chamber where a man appeared. He sat with his legs crossed, his entire body humming in the silence as a faint glow enveloped his body. Elizabeth stood a couple of steps from him as she reported the entire situation to him. He disappeared shortly after the forces from the Megrail family surrounded him. We've tried getting in contact with him, but it's been to no avail. We've even tried to use our spies in the Megrail forces to get an idea of his current whereabouts, but we've got nothing. The princess also appears to have gone missing. Elizabeth's voice continued to drift silently across the chambers as the figure remained seated without making a single sound. Pursing her lips, Elizabeth was about to continue when the figure opened his eyes, revealing a pair of golden orbs that sucked in all the darkness within the room. A powerful pressure enveloped the entire surroundings, causing Elizabeth's chest to stiffen under the pressure. Nevertheless, she kept her posture straight as the figure turned his attention towards her. He's gone missing? Atlas's voice came out softly. Feeling his gaze, Elizabeth lowered her head and nodded. Yes, he's gone missing. I see. There was no fluctuation in Atlas's gaze upon receiving the piece of news. It had to be known that Julian was Atlas's disciple. For him to show little to no emotion at his apparent disappearance. There's no need to concern ourselves with such matters. I've already gotten a good grasp of his current location. He's in Panthea's territory. He's not missing. It's also very likely that the Julian we know is gone. Atlas's eyes narrowed slightly, the hum emitting from his body growing louder as his joints started to crack, and he started to move. However, that can be dealt with later. There are more pressing matters at hand. Zere crack. Pops and cracks echoed with each second as Atlas stood up from his spot and focused his attention on the door of the room. Without saying a single word, he moved towards the door and opened it, revealing a haggard, chained-up figure, his face pale and clothes torn. Atlas stared in Noel's direction before opening his mouth. They've grown impatient. By they, he meant the outer beings. Although not obvious, I can see through their schemes. They're trying to take complete control of the world, creating a second mirror dimension in the process. Chapter 791. Seats of Celeste 1. Chapter 791. Seats of Celeste 1. They haven't changed their ways. They're doing things like they did in the past. Certain images flashed in Atlas's mind. A distant past. Back then, they cared nothing for the situation. They'd all assumed it was just some popular drug that was making the rounds of the market. They all had more important matters to tend to. Why would any of them waste time on things that others could handle? Such thinking was likely what had led to their past failures. Had they realized the importance of stopping the so-called drugs from spreading across the world, perhaps things would have turned out differently. I've heard multiple reports of the same thing happening. I've also checked the material, and it's indeed the same thing. Atlas continued to speak to the chained figure. And yet, there was no response at all. He remained quiet, his gaze focused on the floor. Atlas paid this no mind as he continued to speak. If we're to allow them to continue, it won't be long until they develop their own army of people that they can control. Although we have far more people at our side compared to the past, it'll still be much harder to handle. Thankfully, we've also learned from the past. Atlas's gaze flickered as he focused his attention on the chained-up figure. Eventually, his gaze dropped towards his chest. We've got a cure. Atlas's voice lowered. Your blood is the perfect countersource to their blood. So long as we use it and reconstruct the bodies of everyone who has been affected, we'll be able to get rid of their influence on the bodies. This will, in turn, help us stop them from creating another dimension. Atlas's gaze darkened at the thought. We've come so close to achieving freedom. I won't let the same situation repeat twice. Finished saying what he wanted to say, Atlas turned around. However, as if suddenly recalling something, his lips pulled into a thin smile as he turned his attention towards the chained-up figure once more. Oh, right. There was a trace of something in his expression. Amusement? Worry? I found out he seems to be in Panthea's territory. The chained-up figure trembled slightly, his mind churning once more as he slowly lifted his head to look at Atlas. With a purse of his lips, Atlas mumbled, I hope that he's the same Julian that I know. Otherwise, if Panthea comes to learn of his real identity. Atlas stopped there, but his words were enough to cause Noel's face to show cracks. There was a reason why Noel never wanted Emmett to reveal his identity to Panthea, and had made sure it wouldn't happen. It was for a simple reason, and only one reason. Panthea, she was obsessed with Emmett. It was rare for the seats of Salas to come together and talk. They were all usually spread across all major territories governed by Panthea, and in the times that they did come together it was in times of emergencies. The recent spread of that weird substance is the reason for the sudden meeting. I'm not really sure why they'd call one over something like this, but apparently, it was ordered by the goddess herself. It was ordered by the goddess? This piece of news didn't come as a surprise to me. Although not all of my memories of the past had returned, I could more or less recall bits and pieces. It was also there that I understood that something similar had occurred in the past. It was some kind of drug incident. I don't think it was anything major before I died, but judging from how things are unfolding and Panthea's sudden emergency meeting, I can only assume whatever's happening now is extremely dangerous. Here, take this. And as suddenly handed all of us bronze masks. The masks were fairly plain, with only 2 hollow sockets for eyes and faint outlines of a nose and mouth, more for decoration than detail. It was also rather light to the touch, and once I put it on, my cheeks cooled down subtly. These should suffice to hide your identities. We're technically not allowed to bring any guests, so I'm sure you can guess that what I'm doing is pretty dangerous for me. And Az's tone was heavy as he spoke. I could see why as I touched the mask on my face. Right, they've always been like this. Even in the past. These people didn't really like showing off their faces and identities. It was a lot more strict for the lower-end guys, but it was still a rule followed by the upper echelon. And Az was indeed taking a risk by doing this. Since I owe Lazarus quite a big favor, I don't mind doing this. Still, he suddenly gave me a weird look, and I frowned. What? Why was he looking at me like that? For some reason, I started to feel a little offended. Don't do anything that might give your identity away. Just stay quiet and listen. Huh? What sort of... Ah, I see what's going on. I'm sorry in advance. I turned around to see Kier, Leon, and the others all apologizing. I felt wronged. How much of a troublemaker did they think I was? Also, weren't they supposed to be angry at me? Weren't they all supposed to still be wary of the fact that I could potentially be putting on an act? I opened my mouth, thinking about protesting, but soon gave up. On second thought, they weren't wrong. Trouble did indeed follow me. Let's go before I regret my decision. The gathering should be happening any time soon. Anaz proceeded to leave his house, and followed from behind, and I did as well, looking back to see the others putting on their masks. As I followed him from behind, a certain thought crossed my mind. How should I handle the incoming trouble? Dong! Dong! A deep toll rang out across the city, the sound rolling through every street and alley. Heads turned instinctively toward the grand cathedral at the city's center. the ashen spire rising high and piercing the gray sky above. The once closed gates of the cathedral opened, and hundreds of hooded figures wearing different colored masks entered the once quiet place. Going into the cathedral, we encountered no trouble, mainly because of Anaz and his influence, but also because of my emotive magic. A sea of orbs greeted my sight, and the moment I noticed anything abnormal, I made sure to adjust it quickly. This enabled me to escape any rising suspicion. Thankfully, there were only a couple. This place is quite massive. I looked around. Despite having been here before, I'd never really taken the time to admire it. The ceiling stretched high above, supported by tall white pillars that gave the place a certain holiness to it. Murals covered the upper walls, each one depicting a different scene, their colors faint but still alive beneath the light. At the far end of the cathedral stood a large podium, where a single beacon of light formed, born from the way the sunlight streaming through the windows converged at that very spot. It looked majestic, and as my focus shifted towards the beacon, a certain sound picked up in my ears. Step. It was the sound of a step. The moment I heard it, my head subconsciously drifted in its direction. I wasn't the only one. As if it had the power to draw the attention of all those who heard it, all the heads within the cathedral turned in the direction of the step. 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 Several other steps joined it. The entire place fell silent, all eyes shifting towards the beacon as several figures started to appear at once. A heavy sense of oppression swept through the room, pressing down on everyone as the figures slowly revealed themselves in the light. Each one donned a different hood, their faces covered by golden-colored masks. I felt the back of my neck tingle at the sight of them, my heart pressing tightly against my chest as I started to tense. They're pretty strong. They weren't scary strong, but quite strong. To some extent, they were all around my strength, some even higher. Stopping before the beacon, each of the golden-masked figures went still, their attention fixed on the light that glowed at its peak. A strange silence followed, and just as I began to wonder what they were doing, another set of footsteps echoed through the hall. Step. This step felt different compared to the other steps. It was lighter and less oppressive. Just that step alone was enough to push back the tension that lingered across the room as a figure walked in not long after. Unlike those with the golden masks, he wore no mask. He carried forward with a smile, his entire body radiating light as I found myself squinting my eyes. However, the moment I got a good look at him, my heart paused. All hail the living saint! All hail the living saint! All hail the living saint! Shouts filled the cathedral at once, prompting me to follow along as I lowered my head. It's that bastard! I could still recall this guy. He was the same guy who had left the area while I was busy battling against Exahurl. Although I didn't blame him, considering how he was simply looking out for his own people, it still rubbed me the wrong way. It brings me great joy to see so many gathered here today. Your faith in the goddess has not faltered. His voice was soft, and yet carried through every corner of the place. One look at him was enough to give anyone a good impression. My brows twitched slightly. Doesn't it feel familiar? I thought for a moment before something suddenly clicked in my mind. Emotive magic? He's an emotive ma. Although I'm happy with the sudden attendance of so many people, I'm also a little troubled by the appearance of a certain few. Suddenly, I felt a cold chill run down my back as I felt a pair of eyes locked directly in my direction. Immediately, all heads turned my way. Thousands of eyes locked on me in that instant. My throat tightened as the living saint smiled. It doesn't appear like you're a follower of the goddess. You also seem too strong for someone of your position. The smile on the living saint's face faded slightly as his eyes flickered. Who are you? A certain pressure locked onto me, causing every part of my body to tense. It had all happened so fast that I barely had any time to react. The only thing I found myself able to do was laugh to myself. I expected trouble, but not this fast. Fucking hell. Chapter 792. Seats of Salas. 2. Are you not going to speak? A voice boomed across the entire cathedral. It appeared to belong to one of the seats of Salas, as the pressure they gave out was a lot more fierce compared to the living saint. Granted, the living saint's presence was a lot calmer and mellow. With all of the attention focused on me, I knew that I could no longer pretend to be a random member of the church. I'm surprised they found me this fast, but it isn't like I didn't expect this. I raised both of my hands in the air. All right, let's all relax for a second. My voice drifted quietly across the entire place. I felt subtle shifts coming from Leon, Aoife, and the others behind me, but I stopped them before they could do anything drastic. Let me handle this, I whispered in a tone that only they could hear. Of course, whether the living saint and the seats had heard, I wasn't too sure. It didn't matter. Who are you? The voice from before boomed once more, the windows at the top rattling at the sound of his voice. I turned my attention towards the figure. He was dressed like the others, but I could see from the outline of his figure beneath the hood that he was rather big. His golden mask gleamed under the bright glow of the beacon, and as I fixed my attention on him, I felt a heavy sense of suppression. Let's calm down. I needed to be careful with my words. Slowly, I turned my attention away from him and onto the living saint. This subtle snub didn't sit well with the seat, but I spoke before things could escalate. We meet again. Everything froze the moment the words left my mouth, the eyes of many changing. The seat also looked surprised, his movements stopping for just the briefest of moments. Staring at me, the living saint's face didn't change. The smile lingered, and his eyes remained calm. Eventually, his lips parted. Have we met before? I think I would have remembered someone of your strength had I met you. His words caused a shift in the atmosphere, and my lips twitched. Are you trying to waste time? The seat's voice boomed once more. This time, his voice was louder than before, and so was the pressure emitting from his body. Subtle, yet clear cracking sounds echoed from his body as it started to expand. Oh shit! I could see that he was about to attack, and without wasting another second, I reached for the mask on my face and removed it. I activated Lament of Lies at the same time that I removed the mask. Enough of your nonsense. Let me catch you first and extract some info. Stop. The smile on the living saint's face faded completely as his hand stretched to the side, stopping the seat from downright attacking me. Living saint. His actions brought confusion to the place, including the seats as they turned their attention towards him. He didn't say anything and just kept his attention on me. Eventually, his lips opened once more. I recognized the face, but unlike last time, I can tell that this is an illusion. Are you trying to imitate them? No. I shook my head. Back then, I used a different skill to change my face. Right now, I'm wearing my true face, covered by an illusion technique. The place fell silent. With his gaze focused intently on me, the living saint didn't say anything. Every second felt as though it dragged on forever, my heart pressing tightly against my chest as I tried my best to remain calm. However, it was hard. With so many eyes on me, I found myself struggling to keep calm. But then, he's not lying. Enes stepped out from next to me, his hand over his mask, and pulling it away to reveal his face. I'm sure you can recognize me. The moment he took off his mask, the crowd stirred. The same was for the seats. Taking off a mask and showing one's face was a sort of taboo, at least for someone in Enes's position. Still, it didn't seem like Enes cared as he kept his gaze fixed on the living saint. I can confirm that it's the same Lazarus that you've met. This is just his true face. I can also confirm. Another figure stepped forward, her hand reaching for her mask and pulling it away. The place fell silent once more, the crowd stirring further as whispers echoed all over. The seats also showed signs of unrest, their expressions focused on the living saint who remained standing in silence. His gaze hovered between me and Anne before eventually turning towards the others behind me. I smiled bitterly at the sight. It doesn't seem like anything escapes his sight. I opened my mouth. There with me. He nodded subtly, turning his attention towards a different area. The moment he did, he pointed his hand in that specific direction. A bright beam of light shot down from above. The speed at which it moved was almost unreal, so fast that hardly anyone had time to react. And when it was over, the place where he'd been pointing was empty. Nothing left but a dark scorch mark on the floor. A heavy sense of oppression fell across the entire area, the crowd stirring further. However, as though he wasn't finished, the living saint pointed his finger across different areas of the cathedral, his finger bringing a white light every time he pointed. Each time, the result would end up the same. A dark scorch mark on the floor. Nobody had any time to scream. In just a fraction of a minute, several dozen people had been eliminated at once. I felt cold sweat pooling down my back upon watching his actions. I had a feeling that my fate would have been the same had it not been for my present strength. Still, based on what I was seeing, it was clear to me that I was still not strong enough to fight him. Maybe I can run away from him, but win? No, I don't think so. All right. The living saint's voice cut through the surroundings once more, the smile returning to his face as he turned his attention towards me. I've gotten rid of all the other intruders within the room. I hope that none of them were with you. Otherwise, you don't have to worry about that. I replied, trying my best to keep my expression steady. I'm glad to hear that. The living saint's gaze remained fixed on me. In that case, may I hear the reason for your presence here? I'm sure you're not just here to listen to what is happening. Although I'd be honored to have you hear and listen to our ramblings, this is a private discussion only allowed to members of the church. Unless you plan on joining us, then I'm afraid I can't have you listen. That's all right. I didn't really want to attend anyway. My objective was something else. I'd like a meeting with the goddess. Uh, I did expect a sort of reaction the moment I voiced out my request. However, I didn't expect the reaction that I was met with. What did you just say? How dare an outsider? This is blasphemy. Outrageous. The anger was palpable. It was almost as if I had spat on their entire family with my request. For a moment I was taken aback. Just what is up with these people? Thankfully, the living saint was present. With a quick raise of his hand, he stopped everyone from attacking me on the spot. Calm yourselves. The moment he spoke, all noise died down. I was able to breathe then. He turned his attention back towards me. Feeling his gaze, I swallowed in silence. You want to meet with the goddess? I nodded. Yes. A tense silence followed. He kept his gaze directed at me, seemingly trying to read my thoughts. I didn't shy away from his gaze, looking back at him without backing down. Eventually, he pulled his gaze away from me and asked, "For what reason do you wish to meet the goddess?" I frowned. This wasn't something that I could share. I couldn't tell them that I wanted to ask about the whereabouts of my brother. I am looking for someone. She's the only person who can help me find him. I thought I had managed to answer the question appropriately, but that appeared to be a misunderstanding on my part as the living saint followed up with another question. Who am? I frowned, unsure of how to answer. In the end, I gritted my teeth. I apologize, but I can't share this piece of information with you. If you can relay the message to the goddess, I'm sure she'll understand. You must already be aware of the fact that I met her in the past. It's a very important and urgent matter. Impudent. A voice suddenly bellowed, cutting through my words. Immediately, I shifted my attention away from the living saint and towards the voice. It's him. I recognized the figure immediately. It was the same burly figure from before. This time, however, it looked like he had been completely taken over by his anger, as the pressure bursting out from his body was even more suffocating. Staring at me, and then shifting his attention towards the living saint, he spoke. Why are we even listening to him? Don't you think his timing is a little bit suspicious? He's coming here right after. The burly man stopped, prompting me to raise my brow. I was able to pick up something from his voice. Did something happen to the goddess? His presence is disturbing, and coming here to ask about the goddess during the gathering is disrespectful. Give me permission to eliminate him at once. There's no need to stain your hands. I'll gladly do it in the name of the goddess. Listening to his words, I frowned. What was up with this guy? I wasn't looking for a fight, especially given the current setting. However, if he really did try to pick a fight with me, I wasn't planning on holding back. I could more or less tell his strength. He was about tier 8. That was doable for me. If he really wanted to die, then let's leave it at this for now. Shattering the tension was the living saint. His hands coming together in a clapping motion as he turned his attention away from me and back towards the beacon. I'll relay the message to the goddess. For now, you may leave this place. We're going to have an important discussion that we can't share without... The living saint suddenly stopped, bringing confusion to the place. Then, under the confused expressions of everyone present, he turned his attention towards me once more. It seems like you're in luck. You may stay for the gathering. Chapter 793. God Hunter 1. Chapter 793. God Hunter 1. What? He can stay. Why? He's an outsider. This makes no sense. Living saint. Rescind the request. It makes no sense at all. Living saint. The hall erupted into protests almost immediately, be it the seats or the regular followers. Everyone was against the idea of letting me stay. To say that I wasn't confused was an understatement. I was almost certain that he was going to kick me out. Why did he suddenly allow me to stay? What changed his mind? Despite the protests that were going around, the living saint appeared to turn a blind eye to everything. He neither acknowledged nor addressed any of the questions coming from the seats and followers around. He just moved towards the beacon before stopping. He closed his eyes a moment later, clasping his hands together as he mumbled several things in a tongue that I couldn't quite understand. The moment he did so, all protests died down. The faces of the people, albeit unwilling, came to a sudden rest as they all clasped their hands together and faced the large beacon at the center of the cathedral. They all started to mumble the same incoherent mumbles coming from the living saint. The seats were no different, their hands similarly clasped. What are they doing? Is this some sort of prayer? I turned my head to see and is doing a similar thing. The beacon of light hummed shortly after, a bright light converging in the middle that brightened for several seconds. Staring at the scene, I felt something within me stir as a thought occurred to me. This must be the way Panthea managed to gather faith and, as such, get a better understanding of the source. From what I understood, faith was a way to help the gods gain better access to the source. Given how Panthea was injured, there was reason to believe that she was doing this in order to heal herself. Thinking about it, Noelle's blood is incapable of healing her wound. That suggests that wounds created by the outer beings cannot be cured in such a way. Is faith the method to do so? This was just a guess on my part as I watched the entire scene in silence. Although I was able to notice dissatisfaction coming from the inner circle of the seats of Salas, in times of prayers, they were all working as a unit. They let go of all other thoughts and prayed together. This prayer dragged on for the next 10 minutes or so. I listened to the entire thing without making a noise, but after a certain point, I started to get bored. Like, it was a real pain in the ass. Thankfully, as if the living saint and everyone else could hear my thoughts, they stopped. The beacon flared, and a strong, yet gentle pressure filled the room. It enveloped every single pressure besides me and the non-believers. Thank you, Goddess, for your guidance. 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 I was so bored that for a moment I even had the urge to follow along. Unfortunately, Leon beat me to it as he pressed his hand over my mouth. Don't even think about it, he whispered in my ear, pulling his hand away before I could spit on it. For good measure, he rubbed his hand against his pants, glaring at me the entire time. Fortunately for him, the living saint's voice brought my attention away from him. Now that we've prayed to the goddess, I will begin talking about the reason why this gathering has taken place. A certain tension rose in the room the moment he spoke. Everyone present had clearly been wondering the reason for the gathering, and with all attention focused on the living saint, he began to speak. On the order of the goddess, we are to investigate the main source of the substance that is spreading across the area. Raising his hand, the living saint displayed his hand. In particular, the ring that Anaz had previously shown. This device, created by us, can help detect the substance that may linger among common objects like candles, candy, and so on. Your job will be to find these items and prevent their immediate distribution. It is essential that you locate these items. They hold great danger to the order that we've established, alongside the goddess's health. There was some alarm on the faces of the followers the moment the goddess's health was mentioned, but the living saint was quick to speak about it. Please don't worry about the goddess's health. She's still fine for now. However, if the spread of such items and substances continues, her health will be at risk. This is why it's of high importance that we stop this. Bullshit. Panthea's health was clearly on decline. It had nothing to do with the substance that was spreading. But clearly, she and the living saint didn't want the news to spread and incite panic in the process. Rewards will be given to those who manage to stop the substance. If you can find the dealers and distributors, the reward will also be higher. We will spare no expense in order to get to the bottom of this. The crowd stirred, not just from the excitement of helping the goddess, but also from the prospect of being able to gain monetary rewards for their achievements. Who wouldn't want to receive monetary rewards? That's all regarding the topic of the substance that is currently lurking around the territory. There's something else that I'd like to talk about. This is a little bit more serious. The atmosphere in the cathedral shifted. Where there had only been scattered tension before, it now thickened into something almost unbearable. It was so heavy that my skin prickled beneath my clothes. As the living saint's gaze swept the place, he began to speak, his voice lower than before. Recently, an unexpected incident occurred within Clora's domain. Not many of you may be aware, but she's been attacked. After all, they all worshipped the gods as these all-seeing, all-powerful creatures that could hardly get hurt. For someone to attack them. Goddess Clora was attacked? She must be fine. She's a goddess. I could also hardly contain my shock. However, besides the shock, I started to feel something else. Something more, like dread. She's indeed been attacked and has sustained serious injuries. If before not everyone was shocked, the shock this time was clear on the faces of every single person present. I also was unable to hide my shock. I've yet to meet Clora, but I'm sure she's also incredibly strong. Perhaps not as strong as Cithras or Noel in his prime, but given that she has access to the source, she must be no easy opponent. For her to be injured, the extent of her injuries is unknown, but the Clora territory has asked for some support. We've delayed the support for now, but they're also facing a similar situation with the substance. If we don't help them and the substance spreads, the living saint stopped, but the meaning behind his words was clear. The tension that had already settled across the room grew even more straining. I found myself frowning deeply, trying my best to get a better sense of the situation, and the more I did, the more my heart started to sink. This person who could hunt a god, who had the power to hunt one, we call her the God Hunter. My breath paused. She has power far beyond anything that we've ever encountered. Enough to rival that of the gods, and has recently started to make her move. Despite her powers, Clara has been unable to suppress them. She's currently using her forces to keep the situation at bay. But if we don't do anything, I'm afraid. The living saint stopped, the hall falling silent as a result. Nobody made a single sound. The same was for me. A heavy sense of dread enveloped the place. The same was for me, but not for the same reason as them. Her, he said her. If before it was only doubts, I was all too clear now. The god hunter, that was none other than Delilah. Ha! My chest tightened. Pitter, pitter, pitter. Rain was rarely seen in the mirror dimension. In such an unforgiving place, rain was a sight that one would witness every several years. In such times that it did occur, the rain would be different from the usual clear rain. Dark red clouds stained the sky, and blood-colored droplets fell from above, splattering against the parched soil. Each splash looked almost alive, like the lingering blood of everything that had been lost in this world. On such a day, the rain served to mask the red that dotted the land. Click, click, the gentle click of heels. Ah! A loud yet piercing scream that ripped through the air. A pair of dark eyes that seemed to suck in all the light from the world. A lonesome figure stood amidst the rain, her long black hair flowing behind her back as figures appeared one after another, each holding onto large weapons and dashing at her from all directions. They surrounded her from all directions. Die! I'll kill you. You'll never get close to the goddess. For the goddess, despite the shouts, despite the heavy pressure coming from their bodies, despite the numerous magic circles that floated in the air and the heavy mana that lingered in the air, the figure stood lonely, her expression calm and flawless. Alone, she stood amidst the sea of shouts and attacks. And, alone, she stood amidst the carnage that came a few seconds after. Whyam! Blood mixed with the rain, bodies falling shortly after with heavy thuds. Besides the soft drips of the rain, the world grew silent. All eyes were locked on the figure standing among the crowd, faces pale and bodies trembling. A clear sense of fear marred their features as they looked at her. In spite of all the stares, the figure ignored them all. Her gaze was fixed on a figure in the distance, her face pale as she clutched her bleeding shoulder. Her eyes flickered with shifting colors, blue, green, brown, and more, each hue bleeding into the next like ripples in water. Unlike the others, her expression was calm. She was bleeding, but the wound was slowly closing. Her presence was also unlike any other. She was Clara, the goddess of elements. Amidst her army, she stood face to face with none other than the god hunter, Delilah v. Rosenberg. The world came to a sudden pause as the two faced each other. Until, how repulsive! Clara's voice echoed across the world. What a disgusting creature! You must be eradicated at all costs. Chapter 794, God Hunter 2. Chapter 794, God Hunter 2. Pitter, pitter. The rain continued to fall. Two figures stood on opposite ends. One seemed to merge seamlessly with the darkness itself, while the other appeared to embody light, her entire figure wrapped in shifting hues that shimmered softly. Yet, if one looked closely, one would notice how those colors were beginning to fade, as though being slowly drained away. She was clearly injured. Goddess, please allow us to fight. Goddess. Her injury was obvious to anyone watching. As such, those who followed her quickly offered themselves up to buy her some time to recover or escape. Allow us to sacrifice ourselves to you. Please grant us the ability to help you. My life belongs to you. It would be my greatest honor to sacrifice myself if it means serving your will. Please do so. The goddess didn't hesitate to use them. She needed as much time as possible to recover. In her mind, her followers were there to protect her. Her life was far more important than theirs. She was fighting for the greater cause of humanity, whilst they were merely pawns of the large board. They were disposable, she wasn't. But most importantly, staring at the figure that stood before her, Clara gritted her teeth. See, coward. The attack had come without warning, catching her off guard and leaving her wounded. But what unsettled her most was not the injury itself. What troubled her most was the nature of the wound itself. It wasn't something that ordinary medicine or light could mend. The mark pulsed faintly beneath her skin, radiating a strange, foreign energy that seemed to eat away at her essence every passing second. It was an energy she was all too familiar with. That power, that repulsive power ate away at her very soul. Clara grit her teeth, her face contorting at the sight of the figure that stood before her. Disgusting, 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 disgusting. Swoosh, swoosh. Her followers were quick to move, all dashing towards the lonesome figure. Despite their presence, she remained motionless, basking in the rain that dropped from the sky, the red drops blending with the blood of the fallen followers. She didn't have to tell me. Arg! Yuk! Ah! One after another, figures began to fall. The process was extremely quick, with the figure merely killing them with a glance. The more she killed, the stronger the pressure that emitted from her body. And soon, click, she began to move toward Clara, each step marked by the steady click of her heels against the wet stone. The rain ran down her figure in thin, gleaming streams, mingling with the faint glow that still lingered around her. Every motion carried a certain grace to it as her dark eyes gleamed at the sight of the goddess. The longer her gaze lingered on Clara, the more the dormant memories buried deep within her mind began to stir. Oh? She's some sort of experiment? What are you going to do with her? You're going to merge the blood into her body? That sounds interesting. I don't think you've added enough. So what if she dies? We can just extract the blood away and use it on another child. Don't blame me too much. I'm only doing this for the sake of humanity. Look at it. It doesn't look human anymore. Should we just kill it? How repulsive. You handle it from now on. Delilah could still recall the words that she'd heard from that woman in the past. They were still vivid in her mind, replaying over and over again. She never showed it to the world. She never showed it to the people closest to her. She never showed any of her thoughts. Not because she couldn't, but because she was afraid of what she would become if she let everything out. And at this moment, staring at one of the figures that had tormented her, something within her mind snapped. I'll kill you. Swoosh. The world around her grew dark. Hands began to move from beneath the ground, reaching for the goddess. Having reached the zenith, Delilah was no longer the same as before. It almost felt as though the world was at her fingertips. Her every action felt fluid, and she didn't need to think about anything before acting. The world just reacted to her. How repulsive. Despite her injury, the goddess wasn't a goddess for no reason. The moment she understood that Delilah wasn't going to stop, the hues around her body flared up. The dark hands that were trying to reach for her shattered instantly. A tense heat followed suit, enveloping the surroundings and Delilah. Sweat pooled down the goddess's face as she acted. What? What's going on? Feeling a certain bout of weakness, the goddess nearly staggered back. What's happening? Why are my powers? There's no use. Delilah's cold voice whispered into the air. You've already been marked by me. You can't escape. Click. The click of her heel resounded again, prompting Clara to take a step back, her expression contorting as the wound on her shoulder stung even more. The wound. That was also the moment that a certain realization struck her. The more she used her powers, the more the injury would try to consume her. Repulsive. 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 The goddess didn't let that affect her. Combining with the fire was a certain chill. The ground shook, and the space beneath Delilah folded as the rocks crumbled all over her, trying to trap her within. Delilah's brows furrowed slightly, but she ignored the attack. Clara wasn't known for her combat strength. Amongst the gods, she was amongst the weakest. This was also the reason why Delilah had chosen to go against her first, and now that she was injured, she was simply no match for Delilah. Taking a step forward, Delilah effortlessly evaded the attack. Clara's face scrunched up, but she didn't give up. The air stirred. The ground shook. The temperature increased. It was as if the entire world was at her command. With a flick of her hand, the air around Delilah faded. For just the briefest of moments, she stopped. The air was gone. She couldn't breathe at all. But, click, she still moved, her gaze locked onto the goddess. Voices whispered in her mind. Look at her eyes. How repulsive. She's just like a lifeless doll. Toss it away. I'm starting to have second thoughts now. Let's eliminate her now. Why do you want to keep her? She's dangerous. Let me kill her. I'll do it for you if you're not willing. The more she recalled, the colder her heart became. Delilah's eyes turned slightly hollower as the darkness that embraced her body grew even more pronounced. Clara's expression changed. She could feel the shift in Delilah's body. The repulsive power that enveloped Delilah grew even stronger, and it was that moment that brought a certain realization to Clara as she held onto her shoulder, feeling the wound pulse faintly. The way she looked at Delilah changed. My powers. Why you're... Click. The click of the heel resounded again. Before anyone knew it, Delilah was standing before Clara. Delilah didn't say anything. She just stared at Clara, images of the past resurfacing in her mind. The more the memories surfaced in her mind, the colder her heart grew. Clara's lips parted once more, her face paling considerably. It all finally started to make sense to her. The reason she felt so helpless was the figure standing before her. It wasn't that she was stronger, but because she was directly absorbing her powers. Why you? Her words were brought to a sudden stop as Delilah reached her head with both hands. Her hazy eyes flickered for a brief moment as she looked at the goddess. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. Just a proper look was enough to make the goddess recall. It was enough to remind her of the little girl she had met in the past. The failed experiment. The one she had wanted to kill due to the danger that she sensed. The one that Torin had allowed to live due to a whim of his. Finally, it all started to make sense. I was right. That child had turned exactly as she thought she would. She turned into the very danger that she wanted to avoid. I should have killed you. Clora's eyes flickered dangerously, the last bits of energy contained within her body rising up as her mind churned, and she started to tap into the power that she had been reserving for a very long time. Rumble. Rumble. The surroundings quaked. The terrain shattered, and the elements of the world started to rampage. A power that could make anyone quake surfaced across the world. She wasn't done, though. Closing her eyes, she tried to connect with the source. This was the last card that she had, and it was almost the most powerful one. I wanted to reserve this for later, but I've got no choice. I need to eliminate her before it's too late. But, blank. The connection with the source. Gone. It was completely gone. Her eyes widened, and her expression finally changed. Staring at Delilah, her lips quivered, her mouth parting as she tried to say a few more words, but Delilah never gave her the chance. Crack. With a simple twist of her hands, a cracking sound echoed. A body slumped shortly after. Thump. Aside from the faint patter of rain, the world fell silent. Standing alone beneath the downpour, Delilah let the cold drops soak into her skin as she stared at the slumped figure before her. She didn't feel any emotions. Rather, she felt the little emotions that lingered within her body slowly starting to vanish as her gaze hovered over the figure before her. The colorful aura surrounding the goddess began to unravel, drifting upward in delicate tendrils that swayed through the air as they slowly reached toward her. Delilah's eyes fluttered shut as a gentle warmth spread through her body, flowing through every inch of her like a quiet current. Feeling the energy come inside of her body, something within her stirred. It was quiet, but she could feel it. Her powers started to increase, and when her eyes opened once more, nothing remained of the woman who was once known as Goddess Clora. Only the scars of the place that was once a battlefield. On that day, the god hunter slayed a god. That day, she became the god slayer. 1. That was all she muttered before fading completely. Chapter 795. Panthea's Obession 1. Author note: Luminarch, Living Saint. Should have been Living Saint, not Luminarch. This will be all for the meeting. I've decided to delegate one entire platoon to aid the followers of Clora. In the meantime, please stay alert. The reward system will also be implemented following this moment. If you find anything remotely associated with the substance that is spreading around, immediately report it to us. We will compensate you accordingly. These were the last words of the Living Saint as he dismissed the gathering. But despite the dismissal, a lot of the people remained standing still, their gazes hovering towards my direction. I could feel over several dozen eyes focused in my direction, and for a moment, I nearly broke out into a smile. I'm sure the reason they're looking at me isn't because of my looks, but it was true that I was very handsome. You are all dismissed. It was only when the Living Saint spoke again that everyone finally snapped out of it and left the premises. Everyone besides me. I could tell from just the sparing glance that the Living Saint had given me that he wanted me to stay behind. What are you doing? He dismissed us. We should go. Why are you standing here? Don't tell me you want to cause trouble. He definitely wants to cause trouble. No doubt about that. My lip twitched. These guys, did they think so little of me? But then again, I really had been planning on causing trouble. At least this would get the goddess's attention. See? He really was planning on causing trouble. Unbelievable. I couldn't refute their words. I really was. Thankfully, the Living Saint spoke up. He stays behind. Immediately, the people who were leaving stopped. Even the seats that remained standing near the beacon showed some reactions. However, before anyone could say a thing or voice out a complaint, the Living Saint spoke. This is an order from the goddess. The two of them are acquainted. The stares became even more uncomfortable. Many wanted to speak, but upon thinking about the fact that I had been requested by the goddess, none could speak, lest they wanted to go against her order. At the same time, nobody doubted the Living Saint's words. His words represented the goddess's, and as such, the only thing the people could do was leave in silence. You also should leave. The goddess only wishes to speak with him. The Living Saint's voice was directed towards Leon and the others. The four of them looked at each other, evidently confused, but it was Inaz who grabbed their attention. Let us go. I'll bring you all outside. I don't think it should take long. I also doubt that anything will happen to him. A goddess will not stoop down to kill a lower being. Something about the way he called me a lower being felt a little off to me, but I let it go since he was indirectly helping me by getting them out. The others were also confused by his choice of words, but as I gave them a glance, they all retreated. Make sure not to disappear for several months. The most I'm willing to wait this time is a couple of weeks. I'll think of you as dead right after that. Even if you do end up showing up. Same here. Why do I feel like he might actually disappear again? Oi oi oi. Staring at the girls, I was shocked. Why did the girls' words make sense? It almost felt as though they were planting a flag. Like no. I had no plans on leaving this time. I was done. But then again, who was to say the goddess wouldn't do something to me? Fuck. Even Leon was giving me a skeptical look, his gaze seeming to say, last time it was 3 years, what about this time? I looked away from him, unable to respond. In the end, they all left the premises of the cathedral, leaving me standing alone in the presence of the living saint and the seats of Salas. The silence that followed felt stifling, the gazes of the seats less than friendly. This was particularly so for the burly man from before, his gaze even more unfriendly than before. The only one who regarded me with a smile was the living saint. We meet again, friend. He calmly made his way towards my direction, his white garb sliding against the marble steps as he eventually arrived before me. As he did, he got a proper look at me, his face unable to hide traces of shock. I was a little surprised when I saw you. To be honest, I didn't think you'd grow this strong in just 3 years. For a moment, I even felt threatened. I wasn't so sure about this. While I was indeed strong, I was still far from his level. It would still take some time. I'm sure you must have encountered quite a few ferocious encounters. While I'd like to hear all about them, the goddess wishes to speak to you. Please follow me. I'll escort you to her. Thank you very much. I happily followed the living saint from behind as he led me towards the familiar steps that led above the ashen spire. Neither of us spoke as he walked up the stairs, only stopping before the familiar door. He didn't need to say anything for me to understand. Without wasting a single moment, I reached for the doors and pushed them open. Clank. The room was just as I remembered. It was plain and bare, with not a single decoration in sight. It was a simple hexagonal space, its glass walls offering an unbroken view of the city from every angle. At the center sat a woman with long, flowing blonde hair, her back turned toward me. Everything. It was exactly like last time. However, if there was one thing that I noticed, it was the fact that there was something a little bit off with the goddess. Her presence. It was a lot more lacking compared to the past. It looks like the injury is eating away at her even more. You've come again. Even her voice sounded frail, her presence seeming even less imposing than the last time that I had talked with her. Nevertheless, she was still a goddess. She wasn't someone that I could underestimate because of an injury. There's also the fact that her followers are very strong. Even if I do want to try something against her, but the time I do it, I'll probably be annihilated by them. I greet the goddess. I lowered my head to show her some respect. You're a bit different compared to the last time that I saw you. I can see that your strength has increased significantly. You're a lot more talented than I had expected. Perhaps, this is the reason why Noelle chose you. You flatter me. I went along with her speculations. The fact that she thought I was Noelle's disciple was better for me. Knowing that the relationship between me and the other gods wasn't very good, I decided to keep the news a secret. Who knew what could happen? There could be a very good chance that she'd try to attack me or something like that. I didn't want to take any risk. This is not flatter. You're really very talented. Enough to make me jealous. If you had worked for me, you would have certainly have reached one of the seats. Once again, you flatter me. Her compliments were starting to feel a little uncomfortable to me. I didn't know why, but something about the way she was complimenting me felt a little off to me. Is she trying to recruit me? Clara has passed away. My attention immediately returned to the goddess. What did she just say? I can feel my connection to her has been severed. Unfortunately, she couldn't hold out long enough for my followers to reach her. How unfortunate. How unfortunate. She sounded sad, but the growing sense of discomfort that I was previously feeling only grew. Was she really sad? But besides that, Delilah really managed to kill a god? She's that strong? I was particularly shocked. Although I was aware of the fact that Delilah had been close to reaching the zenith, I still wasn't sure if she was capable of defeating a god. They were beings that had lived for far longer than she had, and even if someone were to become a zenith, I wasn't sure they could hold out against them. But somehow Delilah had managed to achieve it? The god hunter seems to be a lot stronger than previously anticipated. It looks like we'll need to put more focus on them. If we allow the god hunter to carry on like this, There's a chance that she might come looking for me as well. Panthea's voice remained relatively calm as her body started to twitch a little, her long hair fluttering silently as a certain pressure started to come out of her body. However, that isn't the most worrying thing. Her head shook. The most worrying thing is how things are proceeding just like in the past. The blood is spreading, and it won't be long until a new dimension will be created. The pressure around her intensified, a soft glow beginning to envelop her body as she slowly rose to her feet. I squinted, my eyes narrowing against the sudden brightness. Bright! Panthea's voice grew even more ethereal. But that's not what worries me the most. The spread is only the beginning. Even if we fail to stop it, it won't affect us much. What truly concerns me is something else entirely. By now, the glow had taken up the entire room as I couldn't keep my eyes open. The only thing I could do was hear the goddess's words as my heart started to race incredibly fast, my mind churning with all sorts of thoughts. The drug wasn't her main concern? If not, what was it? The outer being, direct invasion. The formation of a new dimension? What was she so worried about? What I'm worried about is... Her voice paused, the surrounding noise seemingly pausing alongside her breath. Then, the advent of the three calamities. Chapter 796. Panthea's Obsession 2. My mind blanked out for a moment. I didn't know how to react. The goddess's words repeated in my mind over and over again, a certain notification appearing before my vision once more. Nobody knew it at the time. They were just regular humans. We were all too focused on handling other things. We didn't know of the danger that was secretly brewing underneath our noses. By the time we realized it, it was already too late. My lips moved, but no words came out. I struggled to properly grasp the words coming out of the goddess. But at the same time, it was all starting to make sense. They're the chosen ones of the outer beings, the ones with dormant power buried deep within them, growing stronger as they do. They're also the ones responsible for our entrapment. The blinding light that had enshrouded the entire room began to fade as I was finally able to open my eyes again. And when I did, what met my gaze was the sight of her eyes. Just like in the past, her empty eyes were filled with flames. But as opposed to the past, the flames within the socket of her eyes were noticeably dimmer. If the outer beings are proceeding as they have in the past, it won't be long before the calamities fully awaken. By the time they do, it'll be too late for us to act. It is important that we find the calamities and kill them. Despite her soft tone, for just a brief moment, it almost felt as though her words clapped thunderously in my ears, causing me to step back as the flames in the goddess's eyes flickered with a certain wildness that made me swallow my saliva. Her words softened a little as she stared at her hands. I've put up with too much to remain in this place. Just like everyone else, I'm tired of living like this. All we ever wanted was freedom. What's so bad about wanting to be free? Her lips trembled for a brief moment, just brief enough to be ignored if one wasn't paying attention. However, as someone who was paying close attention to her every action, this moment didn't escape my eyes as I took a small breath. Indeed, her motivations aren't too different from Torin's. They both wanted freedom. This was the entire reason why they were doing the things that they were doing. But at the same time, I can't forgive them. Right or wrong, it mattered not to me. They were selfish and so was I. Thinking about all the things that they had done to Noelle and Delilah in the name of freedom, I just couldn't bring myself to look at them in a positive light. There was a certain reason why I had wanted to kill them in the past, and it was because of their selfish agendas. Back then, Noelle had merely been a child when they took him and started to use his blood in order to fuel their life. He never had a say on the matter. They just used him as an endless source of life. That's why I can't ever feel any sympathy for them, because, at the end of the day, they had harmed the one person that I truly cared about. That was the one line that I couldn't tolerate being crossed. Greater good or whatnot, that mattered nothing to me. I was selfish and I knew that I was. I guess more or less guess why you're here. Panthea's voice shook me out of my thoughts. Lifting my head to stare at her, I noticed how her lips had curved subtly, seemingly amused by something. I pursed my lips, ready to speak, but she beat me to it. You're looking for Noelle, right? The reason why you came to look for me was to know where his whereabouts are. I didn't say anything. There was no need for me to say anything. She had guessed correctly, and the only thing I could do was lower my head in acknowledgement. I just waited for her to tell me the information that I wanted. But what makes you think that I'll tell you? Huh. I looked back at her, unable to hide the confusion on my face. Her smile grew a little bit bigger. Don't tell me that you expected me to tell you the exact location of where Noelle is, and risk offending Torin in the process for nothing, right? I was suddenly reminded of my previous thoughts. Of course, she wasn't going to tell me so easily. This woman only cared for her self-interests. I was no different, and as such understood that unless I offered her something in return, she wasn't going to tell me at all. Of course things aren't just going to be easy. I clenched my teeth, trying my best to keep my expression even. Eventually, taking a couple of deep breaths, I managed to speak. I am not sure of what I can offer, but perhaps I can be of use in finding who is responsible for the spread of the substance. Would that suffice? I felt that this was enough of a trade for the information. The drug, or whatever it really was, had caused a lot of trouble for the goddess and her followers. If that was the case, then finding the distributor and putting an end to it should help her eliminate a major problem. To me, this felt like a fair deal. After all, it wasn't like Torin was going to find out who had given me the information. If anything, he'd be more than happy to have me go to him. However, that's not good enough. The goddess didn't waste a second to reject my offer. Her simple smile remained, and the flames within her eyes flickered for a brief moment as she looked at me. Staring back at her, I frowned. This isn't good enough? It's not. I wanted to complain, but knew it wouldn't do me any good to do so. She was the one who had the advantage in the negotiation, and thinking about the fact that she was a literal goddess, I knew that I could only swallow up my resentment and think of something to offer her. However, regardless of how hard I thought, I couldn't think of anything else that could be of use to her. In the end, I found myself looking at her. Do you have anything in mind? Rather than thinking about myself, it was best to just ask her. From her expression, I could tell that she had something in mind. And it indeed seemed that way. I do. Her lips pulled further into a smile as she took a step towards me. For instance, I had the sudden urge to step back, but I decided to remain rooted on the spot as she drew closer and closer to me. And eventually, she stopped right before me, her gaze locked directly onto me. I could feel the flickering of the flames in her eyes as she maintained her focus on me, her gaze sweeping me from head to bottom. Despite the state of her eyes, there was no denying her looks. A goddess was a goddess for a reason. Standing before her, I felt it more than ever. The otherworldly feeling that came from her body, alongside the appearance that could mesmerize anyone who looked at it. Still, I had grown somewhat immune to great appearances. To me, there was no one more beautiful than her. Who? I took a silent breath. The goddess's gaze felt uncomfortable, to the point where I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise. Stay still. Stay still. Nevertheless, I forced myself to stand still. I needed this. My entire goal in coming here was to look for Noel. Without her, I wouldn't be able to know where he was. She was the only one who could help me, and as such, I was prepared to accept any absurd request of hers. Of course, there was still a limit to what I could accept. And then, her hand moved, causing me to flinch subtly as her hand pressed against my cheek. My hand twitched, and just for the briefest of moments, I felt the sudden urge to slap her hand away from her face. I just barely managed to hold myself back as I focused my entire attention on the goddess. What are you doing? I made sure not to hide my displeasure as her hand continued to caress my cheek. Her hand was smooth, and I felt subtle shivers running down my neck as she continued to move her hand. She didn't answer me at all, her entire attention focused on my cheek. I started to feel more uncomfortable, and just when I was about to snap, she pulled her hand away, the corner of her lips pulling further up as she took a step back. The surroundings fell silent for the briefest of moments, but that silence was soon shattered by her trembling voice. You're him. Him? Who was him? Who was this H? You're my beloved Emmett. I froze on the spot, staring at the goddess with wide open eyes, feeling every inch of my body shiver uncontrollably as the way she looked at me changed. You're finally back with me, Emmett. The raw emotion in her voice was palpable as my breathing grew more and more labored. And then, I've been waiting for so long. She took a step forward, lunging in my direction as I felt a certain fragrance reach my nostrils. Before I knew it, I found myself embracing the goddess. I missed you. $% Carrot and Chapter 797. Panthea's Obsession 3. Chapter 797. Panthea's Obsession 3. Tall skyscrapers. A cool breeze. Fluttering golden hair. The view from up here is nice, isn't it? Whenever I am feeling tired of worn out, I come here to have some time for myself. It's nice. The woman slowly turned around, revealing her stunning features and eyes. Don't you think so too, Emmett? Puff. Smoke drifted in the air. A man stood not far from her, quietly staring at the smoke that drifted in the air. It's not bad, I guess. Not once had he looked at the surroundings. There was something about the man's gaze that simply didn't feel as though it was there. He appeared to be looking and at the same time not. Hey! The woman pouted, staring at the man in front of her with annoyance. There are so many people lining up just to see me, and yet you take my appearance for granted. You know I like you. Why won't you like me back? Puff. Emmett took another drag of the cigarette in his hand, feeling the subtle tingle at the back of his throat. He relished the sensation before smoking everything out. "I like to smoke," that was all he said. Feeling the warm embrace of the woman known as the goddess, I froze on the spot, unable to react in time. Even if I was capable of reacting in time, I didn't think I would have been able to dodge. It's been so long." Her voice trembled as she hugged me, pressing her head against my chest, almost as if she was trying to plant her scent onto me. I shivered uncontrollably at the action, trying to pry myself away from her. However, her grip was simply too strong. "Hey, I know. It took so long for me to figure it out, but now that I know we can finally be together again. I missed you so much. Don't throw me away like you did in the past. I don't know what I'd do if you throw me away again." I threw her away? Her words brought a sudden headache to me. I didn't recall anything of the sort, and even then, my memories of her were still rather hazy. I could only recall a certain scene on a certain rooftop. Back then, I hadn't even paid any attention to her. My thoughts were clouded by thousands upon thousands of visions of the past, present, and future. It was all I could see and think about. She was the last thing on my mind. But most importantly, how did you figure it out? Figure what out? The goddess raised her head to look at me, the flames in her eyes flickering with what I thought could be described as excitement. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Creepy. I really wanted to push her away, but I just barely held myself back. I needed to understand how she managed to figure out my real identity. I didn't think it was obvious. Could it be that she felt something with my blood? Or maybe Torin had told her? Does it matter? What's important is that the two of us are finally reunited. We can finally be together again. I've already thought of all sorts of things that we can do together. We can go on a tour of the mirror dimension. We can go eat in certain places that I've seen. We can also start planning for when we get out. I'm thinking of getting married beneath the bright yellow sun. Her grip tightened over my arm, and for a moment, I struggled to breathe. "I'm not letting you go, Emmett. Now that I've finally found you, I won't ever let you go." I nearly screamed in despair. This girl. She was batshit crazy. Never. I'm never letting go. Never. 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 Something in the air began to shift, and my entire body started to shudder as Panthea hugged me even more tightly. Her tone also started to grow colder. "I don't know what I would do without you. I can't have you leave my side again. If you leave my side, I'll be empty again. I just barely found the meaning of my life again, and I don't think I'll be able to live without you. I'll make sure you never leave again." I really wanted to cry out this time. What sort of bullshit scenario was this? Why did a goddess have to be obsessed with me, to the point where they'd do anything to keep me with them? No. Fuck. Should I cut your legs and arms? This way you won't be able to run away? I don't really mind that. So long as I have you, then everything is fine. You may even look ugly. I don't care. I just need you. The more she spoke, the crazier her words became. The flames within her sockets flickered even more fiercely, and I felt something dangerous in the air. I finally understand why Noelle never revealed my identity to her. She's batshit crazy. But more than anything, I could tell that this craziness wasn't natural. This was most likely the side effect of the powers that she held. Each god had grown mad due to the powers, and Panthea was no exception. The two of us can live forever. With Noelle's blood, I can make sure that's the case. Even if we're stuck in the mirror dimension, that'll be fine with me. Hee. My heart tightened with each word. I had to think quickly. This situation, it was becoming extremely dangerous for me. Think. I need to think of something. Think. What about kids? Should we have kids? I think I'll be fine with two. 2 boys. Just thinking of having 2 boys that look like you. Before I knew it, my hand reached for her head, and I pushed her away directly. By the time I realized what I had done, it was already too late. The surroundings turned silent, and I felt a certain chill run through the room. I nearly felt like cursing, but I knew that there was no point in doing, so as I slowly turned my attention towards Panthea and pressed my finger under her chin. "You're getting way too excited." "Huh?" I raised her chin slightly and looked at her directly. "You're making me uncomfortable." Her face changed, and for the briefest of moments, I noticed hints of panic. I can work with that. She was clearly obsessed with me. In that regard, the last thing that she wanted to see was my anger and dissatisfaction with her. Of course, I still needed to be careful. She was batshit crazy. "You're talking about future this and future that, but you haven't really asked about how I'm doing. I'm kind of saddened by that." That. Do you really love me like you say that you do?" I took a few steps back, tapping onto my ring and taking out a pack of cigarettes. Although I was no longer against smoking, I still hesitated for a moment. But it was only for a moment, as I soon lit one up and took a drag. Puff. Smoke once again drifted into the air as I looked at the goddess. How the hell do I get out of this situation? Although she looked obedient, I knew that she was anything but obedient. She could very easily keep me sealed, and if I tried to weasel my way out, she'd probably go through with her previous words about cutting my legs and keeping me locked in place. How fucking annoying. Puff. I took another drag of the cigarette. Considering her current injury, I don't think it should be impossible for me to beat her. The only issue is that I probably won't be able to beat her quickly. Rather, by the time that I manage to do something, the living saint and the seats will most likely already be here. This was quite a troublesome situation. It looks like you've still not given up on your smoking habit. The goddess's voice reached me from in front of me. Looking back at her, I tapped the top of the cigarette, letting the ash stain the ground before nodding. I guess. Puff. These were shit cigarettes. They were shit ones that belonged to Kira. Still, it was gonna make do for now. You know, it's not good for you. I know that you're no longer a regular human, but I still feel like it's bad for you. If you would stop it. I squinted my eyes while staring at Panthea. Seeing her current self, she looked completely different from how she was before. She looked shy, almost hesitant. The crazy bitch who was present a moment prior was completely gone. Interesting. This was gonna make things a lot easier for me. Tapping onto the top of the cigarette once more, I was just about to speak when the goddess tapped her fingers together, looking a little shy. I just wanted to know something. I don't know if you're willing to speak about it. I'm just really curious, that is all. Staring at my cigarette, and seeing that it was pretty much done, I tossed it to the side. The goddess paid it no mind as she looked towards the ground, looking even shyer. For some reason, staring at her, I felt a certain sense of dread. I don't like where this is going. Are you in any relationships? I held my breath, feeling her eyes flicker in my direction. For some reason, the question felt loaded. I swallowed nervously, trying my hardest to keep myself composed. In the end, I shook my head. I am not. Are you lying? She asked again. This time, her tone was a lot less sober, and somewhat colder. I opened my lips, but soon shook my head. No. It shouldn't be possible for her to know unless she has connections with the world outside. But as far as I'm aware, she doesn't have any. But what if Torin told her? Maybe if he... Are you sure? A cold voice filtered across the room, causing my heart to come to a sudden stop. Every part of my body tensed as I fixed my gaze on her. And then, biting her nails, she started to speak to herself. Why would he lie to me? I thought our relationship was extremely strong. Why would he lie? I mean, does he think I'm stupid? I've seen her. That stupid black-haired bitch. Hearing her words, my eyes started to widen. She knows? But then, I thought it was just a film of his. I was fine with accepting something like that. That's why I didn't do anything. I should have killed her when I had the chance. But no, I can't show my true form in the real world. How troublesome. How troublesome. Bah, thump, bah, thump. The rhythmic, yet loud beat of my own heart echoed loudly within my ears. Staring at the goddess, my lips quivered. Her words. She knew. She knew all along. No, in fact, she seemed to have met me in the past. But who? Who could she have? Wait, a certain figure appeared in my mind, and my eyes slowly started to widen. Certain words began to replay in my mind. Ones that I had heard in the distant past. Right before snapping and getting myself killed. Say, about what I said earlier, what do you think about marrying me? Thinking about it. If you end up marrying me, nobody in the world will ever cause you trouble. I know you're really talented, so if you had someone protecting you at all times, you'd be able to grow without a problem. The timing, the words, the everything. She was there all along. She was the saintess of the round table. Chapter 798. Kidnapping a goddess? 1. It made no sense. I had met the saintess before I had officially met her. Not only that, but Noelle had also made an effort to keep my identity a secret. How was it possible for her to know about me? No, now that I think about it, she might have done it on purpose. As the one overseeing all the churches, she was aware of everything that happened. She also knew about what went on between me and Jackal back then. Perhaps, I even made sure that the relationship wouldn't last. It's not possible for them to be together again. Yes, it can't be. The goddess's words pulled me out of my thoughts once more. Staring at her and seeing her current expression, I felt my heart press tightly against my chest. There were still many questions in my mind, and although I was still unsure of whether she was truly the saint of the round table from back then, the idea grew more and more concrete in my mind. It just has to be her. If Cithras can pretend to be someone else in the outer world, what is stopping her? I also did find the marriage proposal back then to be a little off. The timing of what she spoke was also off. As if she was aware of Delilah's presence the entire time. I didn't think she did anything beyond that. I'd focused so much on the other emotions that I'd completely neglected the one tied to love. As a result, I completely lost my composure when something related to it occurred. I had immersed myself in my emotive magic so much that the one flaw in my path resulted in such a catastrophic circumstance. Emmett. Tell me that things are over between the two of you. I'm sure it's just a whim of yours. She is indeed pretty, but so am I. I also don't think you're the type to like someone for their looks. What is it about me that you're not satisfied with? If you tell me, I can change. Panthea's attention was focused on me once more. There was a certain sense of crisis in it that almost felt amusing. However, more than amusing, it felt creepy. She really lost it. Her current expression clearly showed that her powers had consumed her mind. She wasn't thinking straight, and that was what made the situation extremely dangerous for me. I'd much rather face a calm and collected individual than a lunatic I couldn't predict. Are you not speaking? Why aren't you saying anything? I just asked a simple question. It can't be that hard to answer that question. Panthea drew closer to me again, the flames within her eyes flickering again. I've been loyal to you for thousands upon thousands of years. I hope you've also been loyal to me for some time. I don't know what I'll do if you betray me. Please, don't betray me. Her voice shook at the end, sounding feeble. I could see her lips quivering as she looked at me, and for a moment, I almost started to feel bad. However, I was quick to snap out of it. No, don't fall for it. She was batshit crazy. Of this I was sure. She was forcing her emotions onto me. I had never asked her to wait for me for thousands of years, nor had I ever told her I liked her. All of this, everything she believed, was nothing more than her own imagination. Emmett. Panthea's voice echoed again, this time softer, despite the gentleness in her tone. Something in the air seemed to shift as her gaze settled on me. I started to shudder. You love me, right? The two of us can be together, right? You're not cheating on me anymore, right? 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 I nearly took a step back, feeling her gaze to be extremely burdensome. Why aren't you saying anything? Don't reject me. But at the same time, I knew that if I took even one step back, it would be over for me. That was why the only option was for me to stand still as Panthea drew closer and closer. Until, swoosh, I found her hugging me again. That familiar, pleasant scent filled my nose again as her soft body pressed against my chest. Feeling her head nestle against me, my lips trembled, and I fought the urge to push her away. Keep calm. Keep calm. I had to remind myself over and over to remain calm, and as I swallowed quietly, I started to think about my current situation more calmly. She's definitely a lot weaker than she was in the past. Still, that doesn't change the fact that she's stronger than me. If I use my emotive magic, maybe there's a chance for me to beat her. However, that's only granted that it works on her. She's also extremely old and has a lot more experience than I do. If I am to fight her directly, I might beat her with some luck. Nevertheless, the actual chances of me beating her are extremely slim. As her head continued to rest against my chest, I forced myself to think, analyzing the situation in detail and searching desperately for a way out. Even if I do end up beating her, there are also her followers. The living saint especially. I don't think I'll be able to beat him. The only way for me to get out of this situation is to somehow deal with the goddess swiftly, and at the same time manage to avoid the ire of her followers. I also need information on Noelle. How the hell was I going to do this? There's literally no way out for me. I'm screwed no matter how much I think about it. I can't fight the goddess, and even if I do, I'll end up getting killed by her followers. If only there were a way for me to deal with her and also avoid her FO. A thought suddenly occurred to me. Lowering my head, I looked down at the goddess resting against my chest, breathing in my scent as if it were something sacred. Slowly, I lifted my hands and wrapped them around her, pulling her into a hesitant embrace. She trembled the moment I did so, her eyes widening as her hands grew even tighter. Emmett. Her voice trembled softly, her gaze lifting to stare at me. I smiled back at her. She grew excited. I knew it. I knew it. You've finally come to yourself. You've finally started to appreciate my love for you. Yes, I have. I tightened my grip around her, taking a few slow, steady breaths. I held her like that for several seconds before finally letting go and pulling back. Sorry? Sorry? Why would you? Didn't you tell me that you've gotten injured from the fight with the outer being? I wouldn't want to touch your injury. I don't want to hurt you. It was as if my words were filled with honey. The goddess's expression melted. She quickly shook her hands. Don't worry about that. My injuries are mostly in my eyes and shoulders. Your hug didn't touch them at all. See? Panthea tugged at the side of her dress, revealing her pale, pearly neck and the deep black gash running across it, pulsing faintly like a living wound. It was a sickening wound that nearly made me want to look away. Still, I maintained my gaze over it as I showed looks of concern while moving closer to it. This? You won't blame me for having this, right? I know it looks ugly, but once I can acquire enough followers, I should be able to get rid of it. I promise. That's not what I'm worried about. I spoke gently, taking a step forward and taking her into a hug. Yeah. I'm just worried about you. This must have hurt a lot, right? Why yes, it does. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry you had to feel this way. Holding her tightly, I slowly raised one of my hands before reaching for her shoulder. She didn't seem to notice my actions at all, seemingly spouting all sorts of bullshit about me and her. I took that split second to imagine a red orb in my hand before grabbing onto her shoulder. Tack. Ha-a-ack. A scream ripped through her mouth the moment after, her expression contorting as I latched onto her shoulder with her arm, feeling the wound that she had sustained in the past. Ha-ah-ah-ia. A blinding white light burst from her body as she screamed at the top of her lungs, her form convulsing violently under the weight of the pain. In all honesty, I didn't want to do things this way. I could tell that her emotions were sincere, and I was exploiting them. However, they were too extreme. She was obviously not in her right mind due to her injuries and the influence of her powers. This was also the only thing that I could do in order to escape my current predicament. Hiya! Her scream ripped once more, and the pressure coming out of her body started to feel unbearable. It was enough to make me want to let go, but I maintained my grip, squeezing harder with each passing second. The pain prevented Panthea from saying anything, but she didn't need to say anything. Her face said it all. How could you? What are you doing? I could only smile bitterly at her. You're a little too old for me. Her expression contorted, her face filled with a look of betrayal. I ignored such looks and kept my grip on her shoulder. It wasn't long before something occurred behind me. Clank. The door opened, and several figures came rushing in right after. What's going on? The goddess is under attack. Stop him at once. Ah, I fucking knew it. We shouldn't have trusted him. Kill him. Despite the words, nobody moved. The goddess was clearly under my grip, and as I slowly turned my head in their direction, feeling several dozen eyes locked in my direction, I could only inwardly sigh. Your goddess. My lip twitched. I'll be kidnapping her for a bit. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.